I'm Charlotte, and you're watching The Ugly Atheist. Today's episode, I'm going to delve into a little bit of a phenomenon that has always intrigued me. It is the phenomenon where children shortly after birth, well, not shortly after birth, maybe from between ages 2 and 7, are able to vividly remember their past life and how their previous version of themselves had passed away. And that has always intrigued me, mostly because of the sheer amount of detail that these children recall and how accurate that detail is. And as an atheist, I'm of course skeptical of anything that is rooted in the supernatural. So I keep thinking there's got to be an explanation for that. That is a naturalistic explanation. But just to give you an idea of a couple of these cases, well, there's one in particular that I came across recently. So the University of Virginia has kept records of these phenomena throughout the world, and they have, I think, over 2,500 different cases around the world that they've cataloged. And there's this one in particular of this girl in Sri Lanka named Purnima. And what's remarkable about her recollection of a previous life is that it was vividly specific, down to the actual names of the relatives that were her, sister, brother, brother-in-law, and the exact kind of work they were into, and the exact brand of product that their family business created. At around the age of 2, Purnima started to talk about having been struck by a bus as she was trying to work, and that she rode around a lot on her bicycle with the products she was selling. But it was her previous life was a guy, was in this family business where they made incense, and there's, I think, only their family was licensed by the Sri Lankan government or local government, I don't know how that works, to create a specific kind of incense. And they branded it, and they had specific packaging for that product. And this little girl, Purnima, was able to recount exactly that brand and everything about the business. And then they were able to, based on her information, they were able to track down this family. And it turns out they did have a family member who did get struck and killed by a bus while delivering incense. And the names were all accurate. And even the brand name, she said when her family went to go meet this other family for the first time, and she was asking them questions about the incense. And she said, well, why did you guys change the packaging? And how could she have known that? There's so much stuff that leaves you wondering, how could she have known? And so what I wanted to kind of delve into is there a naturalistic explanation for how this is happening? I did watch a documentary on Purnima specifically, and in that documentary there was a psychologist who decided to conduct an experiment because he was skeptical of these claims as well. So he got together a group of 4 children. It's a very small sample size for an experiment like this, but I guess maybe it was kind of a proof of concept for him. But he instructed each of the kids with their family present. He said, I want you to invent a person and go into as much detail as you can. And so the 4 children proceeded to invent a person. So this documentary included some footage of these children discussing the person they're inventing, and right away I noticed that there was a very stark difference between the kids who self-initiate these memories versus the kids who are prompted to do it. The kids in the experiment, the 4 children, required a ton of prompting, and they were unsure. They kind of said a lot of hesitations, a lot of thinking, trying to figure out how to create this story. But this one of the girls in the study, in the experiment, she came up with a very specific person, and what the psychologist who was running the experiment did is he followed up and looked through the obituaries and the time frame that they were supposed to have happened. And it turns out every detail that this little girl in the experiment made up happened to align with a few different cases. But it still seemed to me that this experiment needed a larger sample size to have any real value or explanatory power. But at least I think it's in the right direction, and it did at least sort of demonstrate a proof of concept. Though I think he would have to retool that experiment in a way that would make it less prompted and see what the kids came up with. But he's probably onto something, but it just didn't seem like that was what was going on necessarily with these children. So here's some generalizations between all of the thousands of documented cases that the University of Virginia had accumulated. There's some commonalities with all these children around the world. Like 70% of these cases around the world involve a child saying that their former life, the person they were in the previous life, had died a sort of violent and tragic death. And that's supposedly what makes it stick out in their memory. I don't think any of the kids just had like, oh, he just died peacefully in his sleep. It was always something violent. And then, let's see, the age range of these children is usually about 2 to 7. And then they kind of grow out of it and start forgetting all of these memories after the age of 7. Let's see, in all of the previous lives of these children around the world, they all happened within 500 kilometers of where they lived, which is strange. And this is another clue of what might be going on here. So first of all, most of the cases happen to be in countries that believe in reincarnation and have that as part of their culture. And so that might be an indicator as to what's going on here. I mean, there's a lot of cases in Western cultures where they don't have reincarnation as part of their ethos. But the fact that most of these happen, like in India and Sri Lanka, those are the most vivid cases, sort of like the Purnima case I was describing earlier, where there was just this excruciating detail down to the family member names and where the house was and what roads to take to get there, and it's just so much more clarity in those countries where reincarnation is celebrated or believed in. The other interesting thing to note is, out of all of these thousands of kids around the world, they all have this in common as well, or most of them, is that they had very strong verbal skills at a young age. I don't know if the strong verbal skills contributed to the vividness of their imagination, their clarity of this recollection, but it could be something. So I was thinking of, besides, severe prompting from parents, which is what the psychologist was getting at with his experiment, I'm wondering if there's another explanation that could possibly account for this idea of reincarnation and why it seems so much to be the case, where these kids are literally remembering past lives this other boy, Luke, I guess, had he said he was in the World Trade Center, and he just at an early age had this fear of buildings and fear of airplanes, and he when he was finally able to talk, he was able to vocalize, what the things that happened to him in his previous life and how the plane hit the building. And he at that age, a lot of these kids, that's the other remarkable thing, is these kids don't have any real concept of these historical events or death or anything of that nature. So these are very unusual cases. So here's sort of what I kind of came up with, and this is a really lacking hypothesis, but at least I think it is a naturalistic explanation. But it's along the lines of, if all of our memories are little more than a series of firing neurons in a specific sequence and coming from specific regions of the brain, then it seems to me that is the code for a specific memory, and that could possibly align in someone else's brain as well. If there was some kind of specific neural firing that is involving those same specific regions of the brain and that same sequence of firings, like, why would it not recreate the exact same memory but in another person? To put it another way, if you write lines of computer code that code for a specific function, if you copy and paste that code into other computers, you're going to get, and you hit the run command, you run the code, you're going to get the same result regardless of the computer. That is a horrible hypothesis. There's lots of things wrong with it. And do I think that is really what might be going on? Likely not. Probably most definitely not. But the idea is that it is a naturalistic explanation. And why do I put so much emphasis on naturalistic explanations? Why do I think that there is a naturalistic explanation? Why don't I just throw in the towel and say, oh, okay, it's reincarnation. People have souls, and the souls, migrate from person to animal to whatever. The simplest answer is that simply the track record of naturalistic explanations has been infallible. In other words, there has never been an instance where a supernatural explanation, took the place of a naturalistic explanation. There was never an instance where a phenomenon was examined and the researchers concluded, oh, it looks like it has to have been fairies. It's fairies this whole time. Here we thought it was, quantum fluctuations in the gravitational field, but no, it looks like it's been fairies after all. That's never happened. So with the track record of batting 100 or whatever the sports phrase thing is, I don't know. Naturalistic explanations always win out, and so I expect that there will fully be a naturalistic explanation for these phenomena with the children remembering past lives. And maybe that explanation does have something to do with parental prompting and cultural support of these ideas and these occurrences. But the research continues, and we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I'm still baffled by these. And the other thing is, I wanted to mention, when I was researching some of this, I was reading some of the comments on some of these video posts, and there's so many testimonies of parents saying that their children had done the same things and had recounted past lives and past events, and some of them were in much more detail than others. But yeah, it's hard to say what's really going on there. all that I know for certain is that there is an explanation for it, and it's one that we can understand, and that will ultimately make sense on some level. So that's sort of what I wanted to discuss today, and I appreciate you watching. I hope you can like and subscribe to watch more videos like this, and leave a comment other than, hey, call me if you want to promote your video. Like real comments. I will continue trying to improve my video content and grow as a presenter. And I'm rambling now. It's hot and I'm sweating and my hair's not clean because it's been sweating all weekend. So thank you for watching again, and have a great week. We'll see you on next Sunday.